Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live, all about Alpha 3.12. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of the end of our week and we put the screws to some of our devs. We take your questions and we send them to the developers. Like, are you excited about the new Lando show? Do you think Donald Glover's going to be in the new Lando show? How many episodes do you think the new Lando show is going to be? I mean, we hit them with all the
Is there
toughest
disco
questions.
going to be? Is there going to be disco in the Lando show?
Uh, so to get started, let's just go right to our panel of guests. Every show is somebody's first show, so we're going to take a minute to tell people who you are. Rich, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do for Star Citizen?
So hello, I am Richard Tyrer. I am the core gameplay director for Star Citizen, and essentially I cover anything that is character related. So FPS weapons, armor. Basically, if you're not in a cockpit, or if you kind of sometimes if you're in a cockpit, but yeah, I cover all of that kind of stuff.
All right. And Todd, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
My name's Todd Papy, and I'm the Star Citizen live game director. So basically, anything that goes in the live product, um, that's me working with Chris and Tony and Rich and other directors and teams to make sure that what we put out is as good of a quality as possible. For that patch.
And so today we are doing the show that we usually do about at the end of every quarter. We talk about questions related to the upcoming patch. This, of course, is patch 3.12. It's the patch that wraps up the end of this year. We are taking questions from two places. One, we put a thread up on Spectrum earlier this week where people were able to submit their questions and then vote on which ones they want to see answered most. And then we, of course, take questions live from the chat. So if you're watching live on Twitch right now, you can submit your question with the word question in capital letters surrounded by brackets. And that's going to help our community management team pull those questions and send them on over to me. So let's get started right now with the questions that were sent throughout the week on Spectrum. Which organizations will have reputation in 312? Like maybe we want to start by just explaining how reputation will work in 312.
Yeah. So basically, we have reputation on all of the mission givers except for one. Right now, we've got some issues with Rudo that we're working out. But basically, with reputation, the idea is that you go there. Obviously, if you do missions, then you become in better favor. If you do poorly on those missions or back out of them, fail them, so on and so forth, you lose favor with the mission giver. Before, for the most part, you can never really fail out of good favor with them. They would constantly give you missions. Now you can actually fail out. It will kind of return to zero or return to a point where you can actually get in favor with them to actually do missions again. And then from there, we do have it on some of the select organizations, and in this case, it's really mostly geared towards bounty hunting stuff. So, like the bounty hunters guilds, the Blackjack bounty department, and then the North Rock bounty department. So, basically, you can gain rep by completing bounty missions offered by them, and then with higher reputation, higher difficulty, higher mission rewards, that kind of stuff will be unlocked.
And of
And
course,
then,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
and then afterwards, the idea is that more perks and stuff like that will be unlocked for you.
That's literally what I was just going to say. And of course, this is the first iteration of reputation, and it will be built on in subsequent patches. So.
Yeah, exactly.
We saw a lot of questions come in about the tractor beam. The tractor beam seems to have really captured the imagination of folks, Rich. So we're gonna try to spread them out throughout the show here. The first one we got is, can we steal cargo from other ships and then sell that cargo in the usual place with the new tractor beam attachment?
So the answer is yes and no. So if you blow up the ship first, it will then obviously spawn all the different boxes in space, and then you can steal them. So if you take someone out and all their cargo then gets ejected into space, you can then go outside in EVA with your tractor beam, collect all of those boxes, put them back into your ship, and then sell those boxes, on the black market. if you try and interact with them directly from the cargo grid, so say for example you just went and bought a load of commodities that appeared in your cargo, and then you went and tried to use the tractor beam, because the boxes there are not physicalized, they're not rigid entities essentially. So what it means is that the tractor beam doesn't really interact with them. So that's going to be undergoing a cargo refactor, so it'll be coming in a future update that you'll be able to manipulate them directly from the cargo grid. So that's why I was saying yes and no. So yes, if you blow them up first, but no, if you just basically, you just walk into somebody's and try to take them off.
Gotcha.
So that essentially covers it.
Watching the testing for the tractor beam through Evocati has been one of the great joys of 2020. Watching the way that they, the exploits that we knew people were going to find very quickly, and then even some of the new cleverness that maybe was a bit unexpected. One of the big additions in 3.12 is gas clouds, and one of the questions we got from the chat is, can we hide in gas clouds?
The plan is to, yes, that you can. We can't do it right now. So basically what we're doing is currently the vehicle tech team is working on kind of a rebalance of basically EM and IR, and also the addition of ambient signatures. So when that comes online, which I think is soon, then we will go through and basically rebalance the EM and IR signatures across the ships, but then we'll also implement it into stations and gas clouds in the sun and planets, so on and so forth. So then the system will actually work properly. And depending on where you're at in the gas clouds, either you will be shielded, by just being naturally there, based off of the background of the gas cloud, or you will have to go, run low emissions or stealth, in order to be hidden.
And to just touch on that, so we're also going to be working on, because that's something that's been under my purview, is that we're also going to be working on adding cross-section as a signature. So on the ships, it will be EM, IR, and CS. So cross-section essentially is, or it's kind of like your visual representation of a signature. So when you're inside a gas cloud, that gas cloud will obscure some of your visuals. And we actually got it working already in terms of, we generate this almost like this physics proxy around the ship, and it does take into account the orientation of the ship. So if you're looking at it like nose on, it's got a sleeker profile than if you're looking at it from a broadside. So when you're thinking about like partial obscurity or hiding behind an asteroid or anything like that, it will lower your cross-section signature. And from a point of view of EM and IR, currently in the game right now, EM and IR is kind of like a binary decision. So it's like, if the ambient value of that signature is higher than your signature, you're basically hidden. And that's not necessarily what we want it to be. So what we want it to be is that these things are a bit more nuanced, so that if you have a high ambient signature, such as in a gas cloud, it dampens the signature of which you are emitting. And what that means is that you're never just permanently stealth. There's always an opportunity like, you're trying to reduce the signatures. And in the new HUD, which we're also implementing, we'll be showing your signature emissions on you. So you'll be able to, and that'll be both on FPS and on ship side of things. So you'll be able to tweak, different systems to basically lower your emissions, and you'll see those emissions be affected in real time when you go into something like a gas cloud. So you'll see them be dampened. And this gives us like really awesome capabilities for, like, if let's say your org has got a giant fleet and you have a large capital class ship, you can have smaller fighter class ships within the shadow of the larger capital ship, which then gives us, this really cool gameplay where you're like, hey, or if you're a pirate and you're like, is that one object? And you're going over there, and all of a sudden that one dot on your radar turns into lots of other dots. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe I've pulled the gun too early. So yeah, there's lots coming on radar and scanning. And I know I say that a lot, there's lots coming, but that stuff's actually working right now. I've seen it working, so it will be coming in the future updates.
Yeah, I was just talking with Kirk Tomei the other day. He was showing me. It's
cool stuff.
Like maybe next season on ISC, just Just got to get a little further ahead before it's ready to show, folks. Have we found the cause of the refuel restock not loading bug?
We have, and basically one of our guys is currently working on it, and the plan is for the fix to go into 3.12, and if it doesn't, then it's because there is some sort of hiccup with it. But right now the plan is for 3.12.
Okay. Can party members pick up the refined ore that you or another party member has deposited into a refinery?
No, it's you and only you. So uh, I think Dan and I would need to discuss it if we want to change that. But right now, it's basically like your order, your signature, you pick it up.
Okay. What? Here's a question about weapon zeroing. What is currently the max range to shoot a target at in 3.12?
So it's a complex question to answer, because the way the weapons work, the way the planets work, for example, depends on what certain things are loaded in. So if you've been to like a section of the planet that is already loaded, and then you move away from there, you'll then obviously be able to have all the entities that are loaded in. The max, probably the most reliable value that I'm talking about is probably about 1,500 meters. I'm gonna have to let the cat out. 1 second.
No.
The cat is meowing.
No,
The cat is meowing.
The cats are the only reason I'm asking you the questions, so I can put you on full screen.
Yes. So, yeah, 1,500 meters is reliable. It works longer than that. Upwards of 2 kilometers. I've seen some really good shots, but it depends on how, where you've been. If you're looking back to somewhere where it's previously loaded, if it isn't loaded. So it's not like, 100% how it works. We can obviously be improving that in the future, but right now, between 1.1 kilometer and 1.5 kilometers.
Okay.
But you can zero. I think the scope allows you to zero up to a maximum of 2 kilometers. So you can't zero beyond that. 2 kilometers is like the max zeroing. Then you have to kind of judge the shot yourself.
From the chat, can you let the cat back in?
The cat was meowing. The cat needs eating and drinking, I think.
All right. How about a tractor beam question? Can the tractor beam flip ground vehicles?
So the multi-tool tractor beam, which is what we're releasing in 3.12, the short answer is no. The tractor beam has a force, and it's actually all based around force. So I know JJ in one of the ICs called out that it has a weight limit of 250 kilos. Technically, that's true, but it's actually a force limit. So 250 kilos is different in Earth gravity than it is in space, than it is on the moon. So the tractor beam has a force limit of 2,500 newtons. Essentially, you can't. A rock is way heavier than that, so you can't lift it. Can tractor beam technology in a larger capacity than the multi-tool tractor beam, lift turn a rock over? Absolutely, yes. But for the multi-tool tractor beam that we're releasing in 3.12, it's a no.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that the multi-tool tractor beam is like our first little baby step into tractor beam stuff. There are ships that are supposed to have tractor beams. There are
well. I mean, fundamentally, the way we delivered tractor beam, and this was always right from the get-go, was that tractor beam is a technology that we have developed. The main use case right now is from the multi-tool. But if I gave that multi-tool, that's one number. I could go and change that number to be 300,000 newtons. Or I could change it to be 300 million newtons, and I could lift anything. So as long as that entity in the world is a rigid body. So a rigid body, for somebody who's not familiar with what it is, it's basically a physicalized entity. So a lot of the brushes in the world, which are like decorative items where you can't really interact with them, they're not physicalized. So for example, if a grenade went off nearby them, they wouldn't react to the grenade. But when you see something react to a grenade, say a rag doll of a dead body, or other things that you see, whether it's a Whammers bar or whatever, those are the things that you can interact with. So we will be going through. I think it's a Star Citizen, the live environment's a large place to play. We have been working closely with the environment team that they will be going throughout the universe and updating all of these things that are non-physicalized to become physicalized, so that you'll be able to have more interactivity with the world, both from a hands carrying point of view and from a using the multi-tool point of view. But yeah, the multi-tool is just the first foray. We'll be adding other dedicated tools that are extensions of the multi-tool functionality, because the multi-tool is supposed to just be like what it is. It says what it says in the name. It's basically a little penknife that has a knife or a toothpick or a screwdriver or whatever. We will be offering dedicated tools that, dedicated mining tool, a dedicated tractor beam tool, or that offer, and that those are absolutely planned down the road in terms of the progression, and so that you can specialize into that kind of field. So if you want to be, a dedicated cargo hauler or a dedicated salvager, tractor beam's going to be up there, and you maybe want a more beefier version that allows you to lift larger things. But yeah, so right now the short answer is no, but the future is bright.
All right. Will refineries be able to store the product of multiple jobs, or will we need to withdraw the refined material after each run before starting another?
They will. Think of it like a dry cleaner. Like you can do multiple shirts or multiple pants there, multiple jobs, and then from there, you can just pull one out, or you can pull all of them out. It will really depend on the size of your ship that you're moving those jobs to.
Okay. Is there any fix in 3.12 about the party nameplates not working?
Right now, no. Basically, unfortunately the guys have had bigger things to work on for 3.12 bugs, as well as doing star map rework. So that's been their focus, and unfortunately, this is the.
The one thing that I can add, though,
yeah,
is that coming future, I should get a catchphrase. We actually have just converted those party nameplates into using building blocks, and we're going to be integrating them into the radar and scanning functionality, so that you haven't got this weird, party name, name, and then the name underneath the ship, and then this, and it's all this UI kind of combining together to kind of create this hodgepodge of multiple systems that are doing different things. So we've unified all of that, so that it will be coming in a future patch and that will more than likely fix that bug. But yes.
Well, either we'll get to it before then, or this will. Yeah,
yes,
I mean, it really just depends on the bugs that the team has on their plates. Just because this is a very specific one, it needs to go through 2 or 3 people. That it's very, very specialized, and it's been a pain to track down.
All right. So what we got. Why did we rename Chaff and Flare?
Rich, do you want to take this one, or do you want me?
I'll go for it. No, I'll go for it. So, essentially, Chaff and Flare, the real world equivalence of Chaff and Flare is not necessarily how they're being used in Star Citizen, because Star Citizen has, all these different signatures. So, this is something that's been, that's been driven by Yogi as a fan favorite, and he was very passionate about kind of changing them to be more representative of what they do in Star Citizen. So the flare has been renamed to Decoy. So basically the Decoy is basically creating a strong signal source for all like seeker heads, so for CS, IR, EM. And then the Chaff is being renamed to the noise field. So the noise field is kind of creating this sensor dampening, and that's kind of what I was talking about before, because that's actually was an extension of radar and scanning, which was with the core functionality of radar, and actually Yogi tied into that from what we were doing from the vehicle side. So that's kind of going in line with a signature being dispersed into the ambient that is dampening other signatures around it. So that's why it's being called this, a noise field. So it's kind of allowing people to hide inside almost a mini gas cloud. So that's it's about reducing confusion towards what people have an expectation of happens in real life versus, the Star Citizen universe and how we're using it. Because, we use a lot of terms from a design point of view, and this goes across multiple different games, where you pull a term and you're like, okay, we're going to use this term to represent this thing that is based off reality. But a lot of the times, how you implement it or how you're using it in that particular use case in a game can slightly change the direct determination of what that actual term is being used for. And I think in this case, it was about kind of clearing up the confusion. Now, obviously, in the short term, people are going to be going, well, hold on, I've already learned a lot of this, but we've got to remember that we're still in pre-alpha, or so this is about getting the right terminology and the right systems and the right underpinning in there, so that when new players or old players alike are trying to explain it to new players, that it has a consistency across what the real world is doing versus what's happening in game.
Let's see. What do we have from the chat here? With the Idris being added as station security, can we expect the size 10 railgun to be functional?
Yes. It's that it'll depend on basically the ship that's going against. So we've worked on the AI to make sure that basically it will prioritize certain targets with the railgun, and so it won't be shooting at a Gladius or anything like that with the railgun.
Although, what would it look like if it did?
Awesome.
It would go boom. It would probably miss, but yeah.
All right.
We did have a really cool demo of the railgun.
The effects.
The effects, and it looks pretty sweet.
And for players that may not know, that one referred to the Idris security response, which is one scenario where the Idris is going to be in 3.0, but there will also be another scenario, which is the finale to the Arlington family mission, where there's an Idris encounter for both good guys and bad guys in 3.12. So you don't have to be a criminal to fight the Idris if you don't want. Let's see. Let's find some more tractor beam questions. Can we combine 2 tractor beams to lift heavier objects than the force limit that you spoke of before?
Not in this tier. So in 3.12, it's a no, but it is a planned feature and has always been a planned feature from the start. So that'll be something that we add in to the next tier. As you're probably aware, if you've played Half-Life or Gary's mod, tractor beam allows you to do a lot of fun things in a game. It unlocks a lot of possibilities for cargo hauling. It unlocks a lot of possibilities for designers to create missions where you're able to manipulate physical objects in places that you can't necessarily get to yourself. So it allows us, it gives us a lot of scope. It's a really good ingredient to add lots of different experiences, but it also provides a lot of, I would say, fun, a lot of chance for chicanery. Yeah, exactly. So I think what we need to do is this version is getting out. The main use case for this, for 3.12, for the tractor beam, is for trying to improve that flow of, when you've taken someone out or you've been a pirate and you're trying to steal someone's cargo, that, at the moment you're having to EVA out, collect every box up individually, and then bring it back in. And to be honest, that's actually why those boxes spawn as 50 by 50 by 50 carryable boxes. Because if you look at a ship and you have one SCU size cargo boxes in the back, which are the standard, like the stock size for cargo commodities, then when you destroy that ship, it spawns all of these smaller boxes. And the reason that is because those smaller boxes are actually carryable. Now, really what should happen is that your ship should break away, and the things that you were visually seeing in the back of your cargo should now visually be, if they survive the explosion, should now visually be in space. But they're clearly too big for you to go over and handle them with your hands. So that's where the tractor beam is supposed to come in. And it also means that it's less fiddly because we can have larger boxes. Obviously, this is the first iteration where we're adding the tractor beam, so we still haven't done the preceding work. But, the goal is to kind of improve that flow of kind of looting in space, shall we say. So not necessarily for 3.12, but it is something coming.
For the future.
For the future. It's always for the future if it's not for 3.12. It's 3.12 or future. Those are the two buckets.
You're gaining a a catchphrase in the chat. So for the future.
For the future.
Let's see. On the Mercury Star Runner, why did we increase the fuel tank size instead of lowering the rate of fuel consumption?
So it was to do with size comparison. So essentially, when all the ships are made, they have to have a way to be able to balance between each of the categories. We've got a lot of ships. So, the ship team take a lot of these parameters and come up with kind of metrics for where things should sit. So when the fuel tank was designed around the Mercury Star Runner, it was given a certain value, but then throughout implementation and then as it developed, it became a bit stronger, and essentially it was getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and then it got to a point where it kind of outgrew its fuel tank from basically a power to size comparison. So this was all about bringing it back in line from a balance perspective that was representative across the board. So if it would have just been a number change, it would have not necessarily, it would have left this weird, outlier. So it was about kind of bringing it back into that realm. So it fits well within its power comparison.
Well, and it's also making sure that when we're tuning things, like those thrusters will take a certain amount of power, and if we turn that down, or adjust that, then we're adjusting across multiple thrusters, across multiple ships. So this is a different way for us to tune.
All right. Let's see. What do we got from the chat here? Let's go here. Will there be any improvements to missions along with the reputation system? Things like ground vehicle missions or additional FPS missions. How do missions change based on the reputation system, I guess?
I mean, I would prefer just to think about those missions need to be done. So first we need to do those, and then depending on the reputation system, if we want to have it be part of an organization or a corporation, cool, then obviously you could gain rep through there. Or if it's maybe like Good Samaritan rep or so on and so forth, like, go out and clear out this village that, has been infested with pirates or something like that, then maybe you gain, reputation around the universe or around that planet as somebody that did something good. For us, I view it as first and foremost, we just need to get those missions working the way that we want them to work, and then from there it'll be, any sort of additions or spices that we want to add on to those missions will just influence the reputation towards towards somebody or towards something else, kind of thing. So like if it's go ahead.
No, keep going.
So if if you have a chance of going good or bad in that mission, then it will adjust accordingly.
So I was going to say as well, in terms of how reputation will affect missions, there is a big thing as well, that reputation is really exciting for me personally as well, because if you think of the economy and the progression of the game, in terms of ships and how you earn credits and you do these missions, and that gameplay loop of do mission or do cargo trade, or get X credits and then use that to upgrade your ship, and then eventually that allows you to do more stronger missions, and then exactly and you keep doing it up until you've got the ship that you really want. If you're talking on levels of a 6, 7, 8 figure values, right? When you're looking at FPS items where you're looking at a smaller kind of scale of monetary cost, if it's like somebody going and buying a super yacht in real life and then going, but which watch shall I buy? It's like the order of magnitude is not right. So reputation is something that will be critical in terms of allowing the progression of things like that is not just locked to monetary progression, because monetary progression is something that is so tied into ships and how ships can be bought, and that's kind of sets that level of scale. So when you're looking at the FPS side of things, or the item side of things, or character level side of things, that scale is not applicable. So we need to come up with ways where it's like, hey, this super awesome weapon, or this super awesome piece of armor, or this super awesome item, or XYZ, we can then go, hey, you need to have this amount of reputation to do this mission to unlock this particular item. So it allows us to offer this deep and rich progression on the character side that matches the deep and rich progression that we have on the ship side with the monetary aspect. So, and that's something that's incredibly exciting and important to me, because then it rounds that experience across the game. It doesn't just mean like, well, as soon as I've bought a significant amount of money on the ship, then I could just buy everything on the FPS side. It's like, well, I just have everything and I own everything. So that's definitely something that the reputation is a really incredible foundation to build on for all of this content.
Yeah, no, I
The
know.
next thing the next thing is basically getting gifting and subsumption. So then at that point in time, we can give that stuff away.
Yeah. I know a lot of folks have been waiting for that reputation system to come online there. Let's get some more tractor beam questions in there. Will the implementation of FPS tractor beam gameplay, or with the implementation of FPS tractor beam gameplay, what impacts do you foresee on things like push-pull? Will the tractor beaming around supersede this mechanic?
Absolutely not. So, my teams work on push-pull. We're working on it right now. The way the tractor beam's going to work, and the way it's going to work in terms of EVA traversal, is if you look at, say, traversal on ground. So you have things like vault and mantle and jump and sprint. And, if you look at an Assassin's Creed game, you've got wall climbing and all the other, rope traversal and ledge climbing. And that creates like all of these different ingredients for players or for designers to then craft spaces that allow you to go, okay, let's have a jump, and then followed by this mechanic, then followed by this mechanic. So you can create this interesting layered systems across all of these different mechanics to create traversal puzzles. And that's basically what they fundamentally are. But we don't necessarily have that in an EVA space. Now, tractor beam, obviously the grapple hook is, at the moment, it's, you're Spider-Man in space. Now, obviously, fundamentally, that doesn't mean that, you're just going to have this and you can just tractor beam forever. But vice versa, you've also got unlimited EVA fuel with EVA. So at the moment, you can just EVA everywhere you want to go. You can tractor beam everywhere you're going to go. So for 312, I'd say really enjoy that, guys, because that's something that is not going to be a long-term endeavor. Because what we want to do to create a more fun experience is that, okay, I've got limited fuel in my EVA pack. So, I don't want to be stuck out in the black without fuel. And then it's like, okay, I've got a limited battery on my multi-tool, but maybe I'm using that multi-tool for salvage purposes. Maybe I'm using it for cutting. Maybe I'm using it for healing. Maybe I'm using it for the tractor beam. So all of a sudden, you've got a limited use tool that has multiple uses in gameplay, but, could potentially get you out of a bind, or if you need a long range grapple hook and EVA, and then you've got 0G push-pull. Now, 0G push-pull, the fundamental of 0G, it's free. So it's just under your own effort. You're not consuming a resource. So the 0G push-pull is kind of like what I'd call like wall climbing. That's the one where you want to be going, I get to a location, let's say it's a derelict. I can now 0G push-pull, I'm pulling myself around, I'm pulling myself inside, I'm using these grapple holds to get to my location. And you're like, cool, but I'm not expending any resource. And all of a sudden there we have these three mechanics. We have 0G push-pull, we have tractor beam, and we have EVA. And you've got to then balance it and go, okay, maybe I should use this, maybe I should use this, depending on what armor I'm wearing. How much EVA fuel capacity do I have? How much battery do I have? Do I have the correct suit that can recharge that battery? And all of that stuff is coming. I mean, I gave a talk at CitizenCon on, how we're going to be converting armor to ships. That's still the case. That's still the plan. We're working on all of this, kind of working forward. So absolutely not. Categorically no is the answer to is it going to kill 0G push-pull, because it's one facet of, it's like us releasing jump and saying, is that going to kill sprinting? It's just, that's not the case. The intention is that we're trying to mix all of these things up to create meaningful gameplay spaces.
All right. I'm going to take a minute right here, talk to the Twitch chat for those who are watching. Yes, we're aware Twitch is having some broadcast issues today, but clearly we are not. We're still in communication with Todd in Germany, with Richard in the UK. Our internet is fine. We are still broadcasting to Twitch with no problems, no drop frames or anything. There's nothing we can do to resolve Twitch's issues. So chances are, I don't know if you can see this or not, but in case you are, just hang tight, and the show will be up on YouTube later this afternoon. So we're going to continue the show here. What moved us to what moved us to add an AR door finder on the HUD? Isn't finding a door for the first time on unfamiliar ships part of the exploration of the game? Says this question.
I It could be viewed that way, but really this was for the new players. Obviously, the veterans can turn it off, but for people that aren't super hardcore, like this is just an you know, obviously with cars, you're kind of trained, hey, this is where a door is at, and this is where the handle is. And for the most part, they're always in the same spots on cars. Versus on our ships, they're in all different unique locations.
If I had to,
And
if I suffered having to find the cutlass door latch, everybody should have to suffer to find the cutlass door latch. Todd, if I suffer,
well,
everybody else suffers.
and a lot of people to have, and just even like Aaron or Brian playing the game for the first time, trying to get into Carrick. I think they wasted 30 minutes trying to get into a Carrick.
Yeah.
So this is our way for allowing new players that are not maybe as hardcore as our current fans. It allows them to be able to access the game as well.
And to be honest, it's something that we really should be pushing for and celebrating for because, if you look at space games in general across the the games industry, the learning curve to get into those games is steep. I remember when I started Eve, a long time ago, somebody sent me like 180 page Word document on trying to figure out how to just like get into this. Was just like the starter guide. And it was like, and it's like, feels like a full-time job, but the more people that we can come into the Star Citizen community and have a better experience as soon as they for example the free fly events, when people come in and they're able to have more accessible gameplay experiences, that'll only benefit the whole community, because if there's more people there, if there's more noobs in the sky, there's more people to shoot, right? So it's only a long-term benefit from an accessibility point of view.
No, I hear that. I might disagree that we're the simpler game though. uh, is there anything else planned for the use of gas cloud tech than what we've discussed?
Yes. Yeah. So basically, gas mining, it being like a danger zone. Like right now, we're missing like distortion damage and electricity and other factors that would actually knock out your ship or even kill you as a player if you're floating around in there. We can do this right now, but we're not doing it for 312. Is basically create smaller clouds that we can find out in the middle of space and use them as really kind of like clouds versus like the stuff that we've created. It's massive. It truly is massive. And then obviously the other thing is that this is where jump points will be in the future as well. So not necessarily in the Lagrange points, but in gas clouds.
And the one big thing to note about gas clouds in space is that they provide an atmosphere. So from a temperature point of view, if you look at all of our spacesuits, generally a lot of them are rated, say they've got a plus or minus, say 100 degrees or something like that. When you're out in space, because it's in a vacuum, it's basically insulating you, the active status doesn't really kick in. But as soon as you then EVA into a gas cloud to either find out what's in it or take advantage of that, then all of a sudden you are in an atmosphere. And guess what? That atmosphere is really, really cold because it's in the middle of space, and all that energy is dissipating. So that's definitely something to be aware of. That they're going to be like Todd called out in terms of when we've got distortion and electrical storms and inside of these clouds. But just from a point of view of what's in there right now in terms of gas clouds, they will tie into that active status on the temperature side of things. So be wary about just going in because they'll be cold.
All right. So tractor beam questions. I think we already touched on this, but we'll try it. Will tractor beam forces ever combine? Will there ever be like a situation where people would use like 12 different tractor beams?
Yes. So the intention when we came up with the tractor beam was, it's supposed to be this electromagnetic force that is kind of aiding gravity to lift this item. We do want the ability for people to, combine together. I don't envisage a scene where we've got like 250 people, shooting, pulling down a Bengal from space or something. I think we'll probably have some kind of limit that it's like, okay, after a certain amount it falls off or some diminishing returns. But yes, the intention long term is that we have, and the way I described it was, the way the weight categories work. Currently, any of the boxes that you carry in the game, they have a physical weight, but they're not affected by the carryable system. So if you see a box under the hood, it might be 1,000 kilos, but you can just pick it up. It doesn't really matter, and you can just walk around with it. But we're obviously, as we're moving towards a more physicalized world, we're actually setting all these weights to be correct. So some of the 50 by 50 boxes, they have gold in them. Now, if you do a 1.25, 0.125 meter cubed box of gold, which is a 1 SCU gold, that's really heavy, like thousands of kilos. So, you're never going to be able to just go, oh, I'm just going to lift it up with my hands. So what we're going to have is we'll have this kind of, we'll have the weight limits and we'll also have size limits. So we already have the size limits in terms of the 50 by 50 by 50 centimeter little boxes that you can pick up with your hands. Mm-hmm. And eventually that will tie into a weight limit of probably about 70, 75 kilos that you can actually carry. And obviously the weight will then slow you down, so you'll be struggling at that weight. Then all of a sudden you'll be like, okay, I can maybe manipulate 1 SCU boxes. So 1 SCU. And then that'll be like, okay, that's the tractor beam. Maybe that can go up to 250 kilos. And then we'll have something, maybe a dedicated one that maybe is, more numbers and larger sizes, which we've discussed. But let's say you get to the version where it's like, hey, I want to lift this box out, but it's too heavy for me. Oh, just me and my buddy, a couple of porters will come in, we'll shift it off, because it's full of metal. Because at the moment, how the records work is that it's a box of gold. It's a box of agricultural waste. It's not a box and then the waste. So they're not kind of separated. So what we want to do is separate it into the box and then the item in the box. So that means that the box will dictate the volume and size, but what you put in it will then really clearly matter in terms of how you can lift it. So if I look at a 1 SCU box, which is the standard commodity box, and it's full of, say, a gas, that might be light enough for you to lift it with your single tractor beam. But if that box is full of metal, it's not going to be light enough for you to lift it with a single tractor beam. So maybe now you need a buddy or a friend to come and help you later down the road, and then you can all lift it off and put it onto, a Gravlev trolley push-pull or something like that, and then you can push it around. So think of them like almost like forklifts for you to get these things on to more maneuverable items. So long-term, yes. 312, no.
As that stuff becomes physicalized and the size of the box doesn't change, but the weight of the contents inside it does, how do you communicate that to the player so they don't think it's a bug? So they don't think it's a bug. I lifted a box this size yesterday and it was fine.
So when we have when you have a helmet on and you try and drink, what happens right now is it just creates a dead button. Nothing happens. So essentially, what comes up is you get a warning message that says, take your helmet off. You can't drink. So 2 things. One, we'll be adding that blocked message action, which will probably come out with that tier 0, which will say, hey, this item's too heavy for you to lift, or this item. And you already have that feedback on the tractor beam. But this will just be for people using their hands. And secondly, we'll eventually add an animation of you going to pick up the item, and we'll call it basically a fail animation, where you'll kind of go like, shake your arm, struggle, and then be like, okay, this box is too heavy. Oh, no worry, no wonder it's full of gold. So.
Todd, time to break some hearts here. Will players be able to board the Idris and take it over in 3.12?
No. Doesn't have the interior. So, right now, no.
Okay. So,
sorry.
It's better to get that out there now than for all this stuff. It's just like it was at Fleet Week. They're NPC controlled, exteriors and whatnot. We're trying to preserve the experience, exploration and discovery for Squadron 42. Will every Lagrange point have gas clouds, or will it just be some of them?
Right now, every Lagrange point does have gas clouds. In the future, we might, you know, change that, but right now they do. And then we have different ways of making each cloud, feel unique. So like what we talked about before, as far as like the temperature, the density, the distortion levels on it, again, the EM, the IR signatures of the ambient, what's actually in there as far as minables go, so on and so forth. So like we have a bunch of different ways of making each one feel unique and interesting. And then this is our way of, really kind of stress testing the system and seeing what works for us. And then from there, either in Stanton or in future systems, maybe we adjust it and kind of adjust the way that they work and how dense they are and kind of how do we move them only to L3s or does it make sense to have them in L4s or do we make them like super wispy or something like that. So um but right now, like I think I know I'm really excited. I know that the team that worked on it, have done a fantastic job on getting them in, and I think it will add a lot of unique experiences.
Okay. Um, a follow-up question for the Idris. With the Idris helping the outposts, about what frequency can we expect that to happen? And if they're we'll do that one, and then we'll go to the next one.
Well, I was going to say it should be the space stations, not outposts. So
Sure.
so basically that it will depend on the crime level of the people there at the space station. And then if it's destroyed, a new one will come, based off of the crime level of the people at the space station at that time. So if it clears out a bunch of people and then the crime level drops, then maybe it doesn't return, kind of thing. So but that's the goal.
Gotcha. So there could conceivably be a situation where there's enough criminals at one station that they can just keep drawing, and if assuming they can destroy the Idris, they could just keep drawing another one until their numbers are so whittled that the Idris is like
Correct.
there's not a big enough threat there.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then for the Arlington bounty mission, that is just the single Idris for the for the story of the mission.
Yeah, exactly. And that one, there won't be multiple Idris is coming after that one. It's just that it's this one that shows up, and if you and your friends can destroy it, then fantastic. If not, then and it takes you out, then sorry.
Okay. Um, what's been done to make the Idris more capable than it was previously at Invictus?
Wow.
During Invictus, people were kind of pushing these things around
Yeah.
and dragging them down to planet side. How has the Idris experience changed since
Well,
then?
I mean we've done a lot of cap ship gameplay, so there's been a lot of tuning, on the ship side. So the shields, the railgun, the armor, etc. Um, then from there, there's been a lot of tuning on the AI behaviors. So updating the way it moves, how it prioritizes ships, how it prioritizes targets and threats coming at it, and then also the overall distance that it goes to, how it tries to keep its distance from the targets. So if it's going up against a ship that's stronger at it, then how does it maneuver around, since its main threat or is the railgun, then it doesn't want to broadside you, like some of our other capital ships. So that's that work has been going on in the background. And then from there, there's obviously the missile changes and the combat changes that have happened on that side, and how it prioritizes those. And so if people are shooting missiles at it, then it'll be taking those out, or torpedoes, and it'll be basically going through. And if a torpedo comes into its range, then it targets the torpedo first, and then from there goes to it goes back to its previous targets, kind of thing. So there's been a lot of work that's been done there.
in the play test I was in, I guess it was last week. I mean, I talked about it. We'd been told about it, but I was still to fire the torpedo from a retaliator and watch it go, and to watch the Idris's turrets go, "Meow," boom, and just take it out, and then go back. I was just like, oh crap!
Yeah.
I was not ready for it, even though I knew it was coming. I was not ready for it. It was so cool. All right, we're almost at the end here. Let's get the last of these tractor beam questions. And geez, if someone throws a pico at you, and can you catch it with the tractor beam?
Yes, you can. You can actually catch a grenade and send it back, which I have done, which was very satisfying. Yeah, so like I said, if it's a rigid body, you can catch it and use the tractor beam on it. So, yep.
Do you guys know what you've done?
The grenade was fantastic. The other person just didn't know what to do, and it was like, what? And it just detonated. I've actually used it to actually pick up guns and float it to other people, and they've been able to pick them out of the air as well, because you
Wow.
can interact with it. So yeah, there's some
Oh,
cool
that's
stuff.
cool. Actually, we didn't get a chance to cover that, but so you still have all the interaction prompts that don't get like
Yeah,
disabled.
yeah.
Okay. All right, that leads me to my next question. Then what happens when you shoot a tractor beam at players?
So for 312, we disabled it. So obviously you saw there's a few bugs that we disabled, or not bugs. There was a few actions we disabled for 312. Green Goblin was one.
Yes.
You know, the ever,
It was
which
so
was a
cool.
lot of fun.
Tell them what Green Goblin is. Tell them what Green Goblin is.
So you can jump on a box and then tractor beam the box and fly off into the distance. You can also have other people jump on a box and then they fly off. So now basically what we do is we disabled it so that if anybody touches the box, it kind of like it disables the tether, it breaks the tether. You can do dead bodies. So if you need to get somebody eventually when they're hurt, or if they're about dead or alive bounty, you need show their body or whatever, you should be able to lift them up into your ship. But fundamentally, long term, we do want the ability to offer the tractor beam. So, if somebody's injured or somebody's hurt, that you can do it, or, if you're using it as a weaponized version of the tractor beam. But, you will have ways to prevent it. It's never going to just be like everyone is trolling each other and tractor beaming all over the place. It will go through some design balancing to make sure it's right for Star Citizen, and that it fits the mold. But yes, the actor actually is a rigid body, so it worked out of the gate. It was something we disabled. Like I said in my previous answer, there's a lot of ways the tractor beam is going to be utilized, and no doubt, I'm 1,000% certain that the community will find a lot of interesting and amusing ways to use it. And we will find those and have to make a call on whether they fit the gameplay. But yes, the fundamental is for 312 nothing happens, and if you actually somebody jumps on a box when you're tractor beaming it will disable it.
Well,
yes.
if your fix is working, as I know,
I know
at one point you can shoot the box, you could lift the person, and then you disabled it if it was touching the feet, but then people were bunny hopping on top of the box.
And we added, the bunny hopping was a good one. So we had basically a delay. So we have a delay before the tether breaks. So people were jumping up before the delay was resetting. So then we added, now it's like a cumulative value. So if you jump, but then we just kind of went with a more elegant solution. So it essentially, as soon as it touches you, it kind of like disables it. But yeah, there's going to be lots of different uses to the tractor beam going forward. The actors, we want to create a physics sandbox in Star Citizen. That's what it's always supposed to be, this universe simulation that has a physicalized nature in the game, that everything is built on, the physical world. So in terms of the weight of your armor dictates how fast you can run and how far you can run. What you're carrying with you dictates it, and all of those things should be tying into how heavy your ship is when it moves in atmospheric flight. All of these things, they're all tying down towards the same vision that we're aiming towards, and the tractor beam is no different. It's underpinned by physics. So if you have a tractor beam a ship-sized tractor beam on, a mole or something that's going and collecting huge boxes and allows you to manipulate those. That ties into what the Star Citizen universe that we're trying to create. So, yeah. Long and short of it, though, it's actors is a no for 312 right now.
Okay. Kind of an interesting process question here. With so many duplicate and cache glitches in the past few patches, quite a few players are rolling around with ridiculous amounts of money. Has this changed how we test certain systems? And will there be a wipe at some point?
Yeah, there will definitely be a wipe at some point. We actually discuss a wipe, whether it happens at every patch, and I think in some cases what we want to be able to do is we want players to be able to earn different things. Obviously, sometimes now they're finding ways to exploit it or cheat it, but basically that's what this time is for. We want them to break the systems, and even be able to see, okay, if this person's doing this, and we want them to be able to earn, a ship, let's say after a month of gameplay or 2 months of gameplay or something like that, or even longer, let's say 6 months or something. This allows us to do it since we're not wiping all the time, and that sounds wrong, but then basically, it allows us to test things and allows us to work. So, but yeah, it's something that we talk about constantly, and it allows us to test certain things out. But if we were wiping every single patch, then there's a lot of these long and mid game systems and goals that we have for players that we weren't able to test. So this allows us to go through and try that out.
It's
And there's
definitely
also, from a short-term point of view, when you've got, when you've got loads and loads and loads of money, that short-term gain of, I can buy everything, I can enjoy it. Fundamentally, it kind of devalues the game for that person who has all of that money. So, if it's just something they've exploited to get, or they've just found a loophole or something like that, it's like playing Dark Souls and turning on God mode. It get boring fairly quickly. So. Like Todd says, this is the moment in time where we're taking all this data so that we can rebalance it, so that when it goes to the unwipeable times, then we've got a solid progression that people can play through and feel really like, wow, that guy's got an Idris, and that's like, wow, it's spent a long time to get that, and you have these really achievable goals, and it makes that progression all the more worthwhile. So. It's definitely a critical thing for us to discuss and make sure that we get right.
Have we decided if there's going to be a wipe for 312 yet or not?
No, not yet.
It's nice when you don't have to wipe.
Well, it's something
call it
that
the
we
Houdini.
usually, yeah, it's something that we normally talk about once we go kind of like wave 2. Then we start having some of these discussions, but it hasn't been brought up yet.
Okay.
I figure in the new year, like we'll do it.
Yeah, I think we only wipe at wave 2. So
yeah.
I'm gonna get an email. All right, let's wrap up these last two tractor beam questions here before we're done. Similar to the question about the push pull, will the tractor beam gun replace simply carrying boxes by hand, or will there still be a reason to do this the old way?
No, I mean, again, it's like saying, I have a knife. Will it replace me opening boxes with my hands? I mean, the tractor beam will be a limited resource. How you spend that resource is up to you. So if you're down in a cave and you're using that resource to mine, then you're going to want to carry stuff. So it depends on what scenario you're in. You might not have a multi-tool. You might have, you might not have had the tractor beam attachment. So the carryable system is something that we've put a lot of effort into investing in. It's not going away. It sits under my teams again. It's something that is critical to the gameplay. We have lots of different variations of loadouts that people have. So, and when we add more gadgets in the future, it might not be a sure thing that you're going to take a multi-tool in every single attachment. So it depends on what you're doing and how you're using it and how you spend that limited resource when we add, the fact that it is a battery. So 100%, it won't remove it. Certain circumstances, it will vastly improve. So if I want to put a box in something or somebody in and I have to climb a ladder right now, that's an impossibility. If I need to get something out of a cave and I have to fault something up, again, it's an impossibility. So it offers more player choices. I know you asked me the other day, Jared, player choices. Player choices underpin game design. So that is a fundamental essence and core of designing things, so that you have choice and the player can choose how they manipulate or solve particular problems that we present them with.
All right. Last question. What happens if you cross the streams?
I wouldn't cross the streams. 30k basically. No, nothing. Right now, nothing will happen if you cross the streams.
Total
We
protonic
do get
reversal.
a 30k from that.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That's it. That's all we got time for on this week's Star Citizen Live, all about Alpha 3.12. Thank you, Richard and Todd, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know everybody's working hard to get this patch out the door. Keep an eye for those watching live. If you missed any part of the show, this will be up on YouTube a bit later this afternoon. And for all the latest updates on the patch itself, like when it's going to come out or how it's progressing, be sure to keep your eyes on Spectrum and post their patch notes, all that good stuff. So for Todd, Richard, I'm Jared. Thanks a lot. This is the last SCL of 2020. We got one more ISC on Thursday, and after that, we'll see you in 2020 or 2021. So take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.